trademarks and your trade dress, those are going to be your most valuable intangible assets. When you're looking to make an exit, or if you're looking to merge or get equity or whatever, your trademarks actually do have a value.
We're going to be tackling trademarks today, and we're going to be doing it from 3 different perspectives, which is actually what makes trademarks so fascinating. Is it's really at the intersection of 3 things you would think are unrelated a little bit: creative, culture, and legal, which is going to be so fascinating. I have Cass here, who is the best that I know at looking at a brand and knowing if the brand has things that are working for it, or if it needs to make some changes. We have Chris with his lived experience. He's built an incredible bakery, a delicious, beautiful, enviable bakery. In fact, the more we talk about Bonrue, the more I wish that I just woke up there every morning. Like, if I could magically go to bed in my bed and then wake up with you handing me a croissant, that would be the dream come true.
Maybe sleeping on a tray of croissants.
Just, yes.
Croissant pillows. Yeah.
Croissant
Brush
pillows.
the crumbs off.
We're already coming up with ideas.
New product coming soon.
Croissant pillows. And then with Farah, who's our expert in trademark. And the more time I spend speaking with Farah, the more time I wish I had that we could spend speaking about trademarks, because they're so fascinating. The more you learn, the more interesting it gets to me, and the more nuanced that it is. So before we dive in, just by show of hands with our audience here, how many of you have currently 1 or more trademarks for your brand? Okay, I'm going to guess a fourth, an eighth to a fourth for our listeners. Okay, let's dive in. Chris, do you mind starting us off with your story and sharing a bit of your experience? I understand you had a bit of a plot twist in your trademark journey. Do you mind sharing with us what you went through and what takeaways we can have from that?
Yeah, I think I started off, we all started off with one location. And that one location, when we came up with a name, we tried to be creative with like a name, any name. I wasn't that creative with a name. So in Farmstead or Bonrue's history, we came up with a name, and it was a name given to us by someone who helped us start the company, which was our chef, Chris Heron. And he came up with Farmstead. He's like, "What about Farmstead?" And we said, "Hey, yeah, that works. That
sounds good.
Let's see. Like Farmstead, it's a farm stand, Farmstead. People won't really get it that confused." Mm-hmm. And so we checked, does Farmstead Bakery exist? And it was like, sweet, Farmstead Bakery exists. What about social medias? And those all were available. So we took the website, we took the social media. We forgot one small thing, which was a trademark. And I've done restaurants in the past, never had a trademark. I sold restaurants, never had a trademark. So I didn't even really think it was that big of a deal. I thought it was something kind of reserved for, if you go really big, like Chili's.
Yeah.
And come to find out, we go to 3 locations in southern Utah with Farmstead, and then we get the attention of some big dogs, right? And Savory comes along, and we come. The one question with Savory was, okay, they looked at the financials, everything was great. What about the trademark? And it was like crickets on my end, right? Yeah. And well, we don't have the trademark. That's okay. Let's see what is out there. And the trademark was taken, and it was taken from another restaurant, single location. Nothing like ours, but we could not use that mark, and that was obviously that cost us some money, and then that helped me learn a little bit more, actually a lot about trademarks, going from there.
Yeah, what's interesting, you found the domain was open, so you're like, I've got the website. Like, it's mine, right? Is that
and in a single unit, I mean, your biggest thing is just survival. You want to make sure that you have a product that people enjoy it, and a lot of the times that's what it is. Then you pay attention to your profit and loss statements, and you go up. And we were fortunate enough to be super popular, but I never thought of a trademark. That was the least of my concern.
Yeah. Which, when I hear trademark, I usually think of logo, but it's not logo, it's your name. And even though you looked different, you had Farmstead Bakery, since they had Farmstead, it was off limits.
Correct.
Do you mind expounding on that for us?
Yeah,
Farah?
so I mean, I got the call when they found out that Farmstead was taken by somebody else. And by taken by somebody else, that basically means that there was another restaurant in California that didn't have any other locations other than in California, but they had actually registered the trademark with the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office, which gives them rights throughout the United States. So even though Chris still had rights to Farmstead in Utah, it was limited to only those 3 locations that you already had. And so, when you're a small restaurateur, you only have 1 location, you're not thinking about what somebody else in another state is doing. But once you start growing and once you start, if somebody like Savory reaches out or something like that, you have to make sure that you've actually protected yourself throughout the United States. So not only are you able to go into other places, but other people won't be able to infringe on your mark either. So for instance, if there's somebody else in another state that all of a sudden is using the same thing and wants to expand, they won't be able to come into your territory if you've already registered the mark as well. So it kind of goes both ways.
Yeah, that makes sense. So this is a question for Cass. For anyone out here that might need to make a change, now you're hopefully Googling this, seeing if you have anyone out there in a different state or region. If a restaurateur needs to make a change, what are the steps? It can feel overwhelming to need to change your whole name. What ended up happening with Bonrue?
Yeah, so from a branding perspective, I think you nailed it. If you're Googling right now, you're on the right path. And while you're there, start checking out what your competitors are doing and start looking for opportunities or areas that haven't really been touched in your food category. And then other things would be just make sure that if you don't have a name that is unique and it is a place where you have to start over, start brainstorming some really fun ideas. How can I be be distinctive, not descriptive? Like if you are selling pizza, you don't want to call it Pizza Place. Maybe you want to call it like Torch and Tile. So get really creative on how you want to have your name, and it goes beyond your name as well. It could be your brand mark, and it could be colors, and it could be other factors that represent your business. So start looking for areas where you can really stand out and things that will be unique to you. And something that I always use in my branding experience is combining things and doing mashups. So if your company is pizza, look for symbols that are part of you and your story. And mix that with something that is your product. And then when you can combine those, I think that's something that's going to become something that could be yours instead of something that might already exist.
And that really is the key, because I feel this sometimes where it's like there's so much stuff out there, right? There's so many people coming up with great ideas. There's so many businesses that we've seen that are just made up words. And it's like, well, I have to make up another word. But to Cass's point, and this is kind of one of my favorite ways to frame creative thinking, is creativity is just combining things that were previously uncombined. And you can see this anywhere. You can see this in movies, or you can see this in play. Like think of Hamilton, right? Hamilton was American history revolution combined with hip hop and rap, right? So it's just combining things that have previously been uncombined. And so that's one way to dip into and get something that's unique.
And that's something that Bonrue did, actually. So Chris mentioned that they were previously Farmstead, and that was gone. And Farmstead's meaning to them was kind of like a gathering place. And so when Bonrue came to fruition, it was using those same tones and really figuring out who they are. And that's how their community felt, that Farmstead was a gathering place. And so Bonrue came about in the sense where, well, let's make something up because now we've got trauma from trademarking and we need it to be unique to us. And so Bon and Rue are good and avenue. And so in a sense, it's still Farmstead, but it became something that is uniquely theirs that wasn't out there. And on that note, when you do find something that you like or you do think is unique, go back to doing a quick Google search and make sure that roughly it doesn't look like it's available. And then at that point, reach out to your attorney.
Mm-hmm. And I just wanted to just build up on that also. I mean, I think everybody can understand that Bonrue is a very unique term. And the chances are that the more unique the term is, the less likely somebody else is going to be using it already. So that's kind of an easy way almost to protect yourself, is to come up with something that's so different that it'll be easier to protect and it'll be cheaper to register as well.
And one of the things that I found super confusing with trademark is if you don't police your mark, you can lose your mark. Is that true?
That is correct. And you see that a lot, especially when the mark is descriptive, because if the mark describes the goods, that means that everybody else has to use it. And the first one that comes to my mind as an example is Chipotle, because Chipotle is the name of the brand, but it's also an ingredient that is used in a lot of dishes. And so Chipotle really has to work hard to enforce their trademark, but there's a limit as to what they can prevent people from doing. Because if your dish contains Chipotle, you're going to put that on your menu, and they can't really stop you from doing that. So, I mean, the more unique it is, the easier it's going to be to police. And you won't run into that, oh my God, I'm about to lose my trademark type of an issue.
Okay, so I must have received 100 phone calls from people when we announced our name change and saying, Chris, I have the same problem. I didn't trademark it, but there's someone out there who is, has a restaurant the same name as mine in Chicago, and I'm in Utah. One of the suggestions that I received a lot of is, well, instead of Farmstead with the F, why don't you do a PH, and that'll be the difference? That is obviously not true. That was
really, really bad advice. When you're looking at a trademark, there's lots of factors that we have to look at. And one of the factors is, do the marks sound the same? So it doesn't matter how they're spelled.
So if I did like phonetic spelling, Farmstead, totally different, doesn't make a difference.
Would not have been enough. And, what happens is that if the other party, thinks that you're infringing because your name sounds the same, they may become very aggressive. So I think, once you find out that you are using either somebody else's mark, or if you're using a mark that's not very distinctive, you're probably better just, cutting it off right now, coming up with something new and changing it. But I'm going to ask you, for those people in the audience right now that are thinking, oh my God, I have to change my name, what am I going to do? To avoid a Cracker Barrel situation, what did you do to let your customers know that this was what's going on?
Well, the first thing that I realized was I'm not good at trademarks. So I reached out to Cassandra and Josh, and we did focus groups. And if you want to elaborate on the idea of the focus group, that would help.
Yeah, so we did a lot of creative brainstorming, and we came up with 5 names we thought maybe we would be happy with moving forward, and did a quick search. Are these available? How strong are they? Some of them weren't so strong, and so we kind of weeded those out. But at that point, when we had our 2 favorites, we pulled together different parts of his fan base and his customers, all walks of life, different parts of the demographic, and we had focus groups where we kind of, hey, this is the situation we're in, and we have to change the name, and we'd love to hear your insights and your reactions to these new names. And I think involving your customers really created this unity behind your name change, especially when after the focus groups, Chris took to social media and kind of announced his story. And the comment section was the most positive thing I've ever seen on social media. Everyone's like, yeah, that sucks, but we love the new name. Maybe it's even better. And so I think that keeping your customers transparent on your journey will also be really helpful in the change, and knowing that hey, we got to break up with our name and we are back in the dating field. Help us. What do you guys think? What would you want to come back to, or what feels like us? And I think at that point, that's something that was really strong for Chris, in knowing that this was going to be the right decision. And so far, it's been really well received, and I truly attribute that to him being so transparent with his customers.
Another thing that I think of, just coming from a single unit owner, is if you do a trademark, you won't find out for months, but you may have already signed a lease. You're waiting, you're sitting on your hands at that point. What's the advice? What's the advice there?
I have clients all of the time that, they have this situation. They've got this restaurant idea. They've already signed the leases. So what we'll do is we'll file what's called an intent to use mark, which means that they have the intention to use the mark in the future, but they're reserving their rights right now. It's generally taking about 5 to 6 months for applications to be reviewed at the trademark office. So, fingers crossed, hopefully your application will go through. But before we do that, we usually do a search. And so that search will give us a pretty good idea of what's already out there, what to expect. If we're going to get a refusal, how are we going to address that? But there's really only so much that you can do because you can't wait for the trademark to come back to start your business. But what you can do is that you can move forward with your business. And if something, God forbid, should happen, you pivot, right? And you either change whatever needs to be changed or you go to something completely different. But, I think it's more important that you focus on the business and getting that off the ground. And then the trademark stuff, we can work with you to make sure that all of that gets squared away as soon as possible.
Well, and that precedence does matter. Getting that filed early, you were saying, helps when there's a dispute later on. So who got it? Who filed their intent to use earlier?
Exactly. And that's the thing. Even though you don't really get your rights until the mark registers, if you filed your intent to use, 6 months before your competitor actually started using the mark, once you start using it, your date goes all the way back. And so if they started using it before you, technically, you still tell them, no, you can't do that anymore. That's ours.
That's ours.
Yeah.
If you do find yourself in that situation, I think it's important to not be scared. One of the things we did with Farmstead was just immediately take inventory of all the logos that we did want to change over. And we kind of made a priority list, like, okay, outdoor signage has to come first because that's customer facing. And then packaging is slowly being released. Sometimes we just had stickers as flyers to be like, hey, we had to change our name and this is why. So bear with us as we get through all of our existing packaging. But I think customers are really understanding when you make them part of the process, and just kind of making a list and then slowly checking off different things is going to get you there sooner than you think.
And then to be clear, with that customer involvement, well, I think there's two things that went into the success of that. One, Chris is a super genuine guy. And so he had a great relationship with his customer, with his fan base, right? So there's that relationship already. But then there's also the side of it where we didn't ask the customers, Chris didn't ask the customers, what should it be? He came up with some ideas. Together, we brainstormed them, went through them, and talked to his closest customers first. It was phased. It wasn't just shot out on social media, but it was, let's get the people whose opinions I really need, the buy-in I really need, which is, his employee number one and some of your neighbors and some of the people that have helped you throughout your journey, right? And bringing them together.
I think Velvet Taco said something where you hire the professionals, right? I'm not a trademark attorney and I'm not probably the most creative. And so I think Josh and Cassandra had such a nice way of telling me, no, that was pretty stupid. So, I put my hands, my faith in you guys, and you guys knocked it out of the park with the new name.
Thank you. Farah, I would love to hear more from you on what can get protected.
So there's lots of things that you can protect. In the restaurant space, I've actually worked with restaurant companies for a very long time. Obviously your name, the name of your restaurant, it's going to be the logo. A lot of the times we'll even protect the menu items. So, names of particular products that you're serving. If it's something that you think is really unique to you, we can protect that.
Is the name and the logo, are those two separate protections?
The names and the logos are two separate protections because the logo actually is going to protect the actual design elements, and the name is going to protect the name regardless of how you use it. So if, for instance, somebody's using a similar name and we have a word mark, it's called a word mark. If that's registered, we can go after them. But if you only have your logo registered with the name inside of it, then you're really only limited to the way that it looks inside that logo. So you want to make sure that you do both. Menu items are important because sometimes, your customers will refer to your menu item and you don't want your competitors to use that. I've actually had clients in the past that have copyrighted their menus. So for instance, I don't know if anybody or if you're familiar with the Cheesecake Factory's menu, it's like a book. They actually have a copyright on that so that, their competitors don't start doing it the same way. So the other thing that you can protect is your product packaging, if it's very unique, if it's got different colors, if it's got a different design. And then the last thing, and this is generally for those restaurants that have more than one unit and it's a very unique look and feel inside, you can, register the trade dress. So I think way back when, was it Rainforest Cafe? I believe that they had trade dress protection for the inside look of their restaurant. In-N-Out has done the same thing, with the red and the white and the way that the counters are set up, the way that their tables look. So there's a whole bunch of things that, you should keep in mind when you're developing your brand. And this is kind of what Cassandra was talking about, is like, your brand is not just your trademark, it's your culture, and it's all of the other things that are going into your business.
How do you get them to award that trademark on something that seems more like the interior design? How are they going to say, yes, you can have that protected, no one else can use that?
So for that, you're going to need to have a lot of evidence. You're going to need to have consumer surveys in some instances that shows that people recognize that interior looks like your restaurant and nobody else's. You have to have about 5 years of use. So it's a little bit harder to do that than to do a regular trademark. But the value that you get from that is also a lot higher. It's a lot better because you'll prevent your competitors from making their restaurants look like yours.
Yeah.
And the thing with the trademark is that as long as you keep using it, it lasts forever. There's no expiration date. As long as you keep using it and you file your renewal every 10 years. Whereas other types of intellectual property have a limit.
So that's interesting. That element of time changes things because a lot of us, us creatives or founders with big ideas, we want to change things because we get sick. We're always going to have new ideas. We get sick of what we have. But if it takes time to get some of those things protected, you really have to begin with the end in mind and spend a little bit of extra time up front to say, is this something I love enough to keep for 5 years? Because if I could keep this for 5 years, I might be able to get it protected. And then it's mine. No one else can do what I'm doing.
And you have to love it enough to protect it, police it, right? And pay the attorney fees to go after the people who are actually using that mark.
That is true. But in counter to that, your trademarks and your trade dress, those are going to be your most valuable intangible assets. When you're looking to make an exit or if you're looking to merge or get equity or whatever, your trademarks actually do have a value. And that value comes from recognition amongst consumers, from businesses. And, a lot of it also has to do with, social media and publications. People recognize the name, and that is where the value is because that name is then associated with the food that you're serving. People may remember your dish, but they may not remember what your dish is called, but they're going to remember the name of your restaurant.
What about co-owning a trademark?
You can do a co-ownership. You can either do it in the name of a company. You can do it as individuals. Generally, we like to see our clients put their trademarks into the company because there are protections from personal liabilities when it's in the name of the company. But if you've got two individuals that are not very savvy and, you can do it that way, it's just, I don't recommend that for a business.
Hearing Farah say trademarks, plural, I think should be another clue. Multiple, right? This should be a proactive thing that you're building your brand value. Because once you have your word mark and then you have your trademark with your logo, that doesn't need to be the end. In fact, we've seen times where it's like, what phrases are we using? We need to get them protected. Oh, we don't have any phrases that we're using that people would see as ours. Let's come up with some phrases, right? You got to build your brand IP so that you end up with this, this basket of things that you own that are yours. If you don't have anything other than just your word mark, then time to hit the brainstorm, hit the whiteboard, start coming up with some things that then you can search, see if anyone has it, and start building your IP that way.
To add to that really quick too is before you even get there and knowing you want to do that, figure out your story and who you are so that you have a really good foundation to make decisions off of so that you're not like, oh, this is cool this year. Let's trademark that. Or I really like the sound of this. Make sure everything is going to come back to who you are as a company and your culture and your product.
Mm-hmm.
I think the other thing that I wanted to mention is that a lot of the restaurants and a lot of just businesses in general these days are using social media, right? So everybody's on TikTok, everybody's on Instagram. You never know when all of a sudden it's going to become viral. And so, if you've got some sort of a catchphrase that you're using or a hashtag or something like that, give it some thought because if it's going to go viral, you want to be able to protect it so that nobody else can come in and use it.
Fantastic. Do you mind hitting the slide, whoever's on the computer for us? I do want to show you guys an overview, which will help just make sure we're not missing any part of this journey because there are some steps you can take in order. I'll describe it to you. Next slide. The first step is you come up with something that's unique, right? Come up with your own idea. After that, Google it. And I know it can be scary doing that because you love your idea. Like, this is the greatest idea. And I've done this where it's like, please no one have it. Like, please don't be on there anywhere. Once you Google it, you have to do that search. See if it's up there anywhere. From there, there's the file intent to use, like Farah had said. If it's something you want to use, file your intent to use. As soon as you're using it, that's when you can add the TM. And this was crazy to Cass and I. The TM, no one polices it, and it doesn't mean you have a registered trademark. The TM basically just means coming soon. So immediately get a TM on every one of your logos. Well, as soon as you are using it in public-facing commerce, file for your trademark. And you want to do that immediately, right? As soon as you're using it, get it filed.
Yeah, I mean, I would say as long as you know that you're going to use it, file it as an intent to use. You can present your evidence of it later on to get it registered. But I mean, if you haven't done it already and you want to do it now. Don't wait. I don't think that there's any point in waiting at all. I mean, I would do it sooner rather than later. I mean, I've seen cases throughout my career where, it made a difference of like 3 or 4 days that we filed first. And somebody filed, and the other thing, by the way, is if you have an idea, don't go around telling other people. Because if it's a really good idea, somebody may beat you to it. And I've seen that happen as well, which is crazy, but it does happen.
And then to finish that off, once you have it registered, put your R on all of your logos, on all your marks.
It's yours.
And then from that, enforce and make sure you use it properly.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jet.
Wow.
When I say use it properly, sorry, one last point. When I say use it properly, this was something Farah taught me. Don't use your trademark descriptively. Now that it's trademarked, you don't want to use it in describing something because you've saved that as your name.
And I will give you an example. Don't use the word Xerox unless the copy was made on a Xerox machine. Otherwise, it's a photocopy. So don't use it as, this is a Xerox.
That's a brand,
It's a brand, not a noun.
not a common noun.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. We have some burning questions from the audience. You've been so good today. By the way, you've sent us great questions. Thank you. And no exception here. The first question is from a small brand who's worried about the cost associated with filing for a trademark. What can a small brand do? Is there a way to file for a trademark without spending thousands?
You can try to do it yourself. It's not an easy system, but I think that the USPTO does have some videos and things online that you can watch, and they'll go through it with you. Or, you can talk to an attorney and let them know this is my budget. I work with small companies all of the time. I mean, I'm willing to give startups a break just because I'm trying to build up a relationship and I want to be there for the entire, length of your business. So, you can reach out to me or you can reach out to somebody else and just let them know, like, look, I'm looking for a long-term relationship. What can you do?
That's a great answer. The next one is from the creative side. From the creative side, how do you balance originality with practicality when you're naming a restaurant? So you're going to name it, you want it to be original, but you also want it to be practical. What's the balance there?
I think, again, just kind of looking at the competitor landscape and seeing where areas or trends are already existing so that you can see where there might be a twist of area of opportunity. And again, get creative. Make a list of words, get your creative friend, just kind of start brainstorming. I mean, we wrote down probably over 500 words before we ended up with something that sounds so simple. And so I think it's just really allowing yourself to be creative and to come up with dumb ideas to then follow through on something that might actually land that's really fun.
On that too, with Bonrue, we knew we had a really good idea of who we were.
Yeah.
When we started this process. And it just made it so much easier. Exceptional pastry, exceptional food, exceptional service and hospitality, and exceptionally fast. And I think we honed in on that throughout that process.
Yeah.
Another note on that, when Farah told me avoid being descriptive, I was like, the first mistake I made was assuming I'm a trademark expert and telling everyone I know, don't be descriptive. But then people started naming businesses that their names were descriptive. And I was like, good point. Take Savory, for example. Like, why does Savory work? And it's because it's not It's suggestive.
It's suggestive. It doesn't actually describe what the goods or the services are. It's just suggesting that, oh, this is maybe something food or restaurant related, but it doesn't like tell the consumer, oh, this is exactly what it is.
So it doesn't mean you have to make up words always. You can still use normal adjectives just that are unrelated to your industry or to your concept.
Yeah.
Okay, the last question came in from the audience. As more brands go digital and global, how is the landscape of trademarks evolving both nationally and internationally?
That is a great question. I was actually just talking to a client about this yesterday. You know, the foreign markets right now are just booming. Everybody wants the American brands. Unfortunately, if you have a U.S. trademark registration, you're only limited to the U.S. So it's really a matter of identifying where you may want to either license or franchise your brand and protecting your mark there. Unlike the US, which is what is called a first to use country where you have common law rights because you first used the mark, a lot of the other countries are not. They're what are called first to file countries. That means that somebody can register your trademark before you and then they can prevent you from using, registering, licensing, franchising your mark there. China is an example of that, and there are a lot of Chinese, filers that find the successful American brands, and they will register the mark before you because they know that then you have to buy it back from them. So, if you are planning on going international, I know that it sounds like it's really expensive, but it actually is cheaper if you register your mark yourself instead of trying to buy it back from someone else. So think 3 to 5 years in advance and see where you want to be, and then come up with a strategy and a plan to protect yourself.
Great advice. Any other thoughts? Brands growing nationally or internationally? Great.
Great.
Well, I think that was a good mic job for the end of this panel. Let's give these four a round of applause and thank them.
Thank you.